Hello everybody. So another DCS beginners video from me. Another one of the relatively frequent questions I've been seeing lately is from people who actually have taken their first steps and wondering what module they should purchase next. This is a deceptively complex question actually. I'm not even sure if I can make a decent video about it in a single video of watchable length, but I'll try anyway. But this may perhaps spill over into a mini-series of sorts. At this point, I think today is 30th of August 2020, and there's like more than 40 flyable airframes in the DCS, perhaps 50, I don't know, and they are of a very diverse selection. So the first question you should ask yourself when wondering about what module to get next is what kind of aircraft do you want? In DCS we have relatively modern and even actually fairly modern 4th generation multi-role fighter jets with fly-by-wire controls and fairly advanced whiz-bangs, perhaps not up to today's standards of modern, but they are modern by up to a decade ago, and they would work pretty well in today's conflicts as well. But you may be like me and you may enjoy more challenging aircrafts, the ones that are difficult to fly, that doesn't hold your hands, and the computers doesn't aid your aim as much, so you have to quote-unquote use the force or follow strict procedures in order to get any sort of accuracy. Some people prefer those sort of things, and even then there's the preference of what period of time do you prefer, what sort of technology. You have early jets like MiG-15, MiG-19, F-86. You have trainers and light combat aircraft which are roughly similar in performance to those, like C-101, L-39, and there's also the free MB-339 mod that's worth mentioning here. And then you have the old piston engine warbirds like Spitfire, Spitfire Mark 9 to be more specific, and BF-109 K4, two different types of Focke-Wulf 190. We have A8 and the D9 right now, but also it seems it's a possibility for us to later on get G and F ground attack variants of the short-nosed FW-190 as well. There's of course the legendary P-51D Mustang, two different variants of it, as well as P-47D, about as legendary, if not more. And we should get soon the very much legendary and the first twin-engine prop aircraft in DCS, the Mosquito. Then you have the helicopters, you have jets from 60s, 70s, 80s like MiG-21 BIS, F-5E Block 3, and early 80s 4th generation fighters like Mirage 2000C. All of these offer really different tastes. Then you have the role of the jets. If you are into air-to-ground, well, one of the first flagship modules is A10C, and it's getting a new optional payware, let's say facelift, with more capabilities sometime in foreseeable future. But it's one of the most complete modules, The Warthog is a very iconic plane. It can haul around a huge load of ordnance, and with the lightning targeting pod and pretty well integrated navigation attack system with it, it's one of the most capable close air support planes in the game. But in a really high threat environment, its slow speed will come to bite it in the ass. So if you want something faster for ground attack, maybe you should look at the multiple combat jets. We have like FA-18 Hornet, F-16 Viper once it's get more complete, in my opinion, but that's whole another discussion we'll touch later. And the JF-17. So if you want something fast but perhaps more old school but still capable for ground attack, you have the Heatblur's very nice AJS-37 Viggen with its very unique approach and systems, and it's one pass haul ass, very fast low altitude planned kind of mission flavor. It's really special. So yeah, long and short, without trying to review every single module in DCS, first thing you should decide is probably, do you want something old school, do you want something middle of the road, old school but still advanced systems, or do you want the most modern things you can possibly get in DCS? So that's the first consideration. Then there is, do you want air-to-air or air-to-ground? And air-to-ground can be thought of two separate sorts, like close air support, go in and take out as many tanks and such as possible, or more planned interdiction type missions, penetrating enemy air defense, which is more suitable for later multi-role jets and something like a Viggen. As for the air-to-air, there's old school dogfighting, modern dogfighting, and then beyond visual range missile combat, for which you may consider things like F-14 Tomcat with its really long sticks, the Phoenix missiles, as well as again the modern multi-role jets. So that's one thing to consider. But there's another dimension you may need to consider in DCS modules. The completeness level of the module, and also the realism of it. The latter will become subjective, of course. Great majority of us, including myself, have not been able to just go around and fly these types in real life. That's part of the reason why we are so much into DCS. It's giving us a chance to get as close to that as possible. But yeah, like I said, that's a consideration. But the level of early access completeness is a lot more palpable, actually. DCS is a very complex product. The modules in DCS are pretty labor intensive to make, both from a research perspective, getting access to perhaps hard to get documents for former or even current military hardware, and then translating those as realistic as possible into a flight simulation game. So it's kind of to be expected that it will take a lot of time, and this is a niche market. They will need to keep it profitable. So I do understand the early access model, but still, someone who has been flying flight sims for better part of 2.5 decades, and someone who has been with DCS for about 7 years now. To be fair, I have personally become quite jaded on the early access model, so I tend to not support really early access kind of ones, like F-16 was in the beginning, and for my taste it still sort of is. But I'm not going to preach that this should be everyone's approach. And so yeah, if you are really a huge F-16 fan and you are okay to be learning mostly the air-to-air side of things for now, and not being able to play with the more advanced air-to-ground side of things until later on, well, then why not? You may go for it. On the flip side though, there are companies who does early access pretty well in my opinion, like Heatblur. Their Viggen and Tomcat had lots of great stuff going for them already in the release. Sure, they had stuff to be completed, they had bugs, but they were almost feature complete from get-go. So I have a huge deal of respect for that kind of development, even if it takes longer to deliver. But like I said, that's on you to choose whichever you prefer. Then you have things like Gazelle, which may be considered somewhere in between. It's one of the most controversial modules in DCS history. Its flight model is not overly loved by many people in the community. I sort of lean close to them, but not entirely with them. I think, in my somewhat subjective opinion, the other helicopter modules in DCS have better flight models than the Gazelle, but still, one thing people seem to ignore quite happily is that Gazelle has been one of the most featured complete modules since its release in DCS. They already had a pretty decent campaign, fish shipped with it. The module includes multiple versions of the helicopter, and they had relatively few systems and gameplay-wise bugs in the module, and well, they worked pretty hard to fix those. But yeah, flight model is what it is. So I personally find Gazelle still enjoyable. I do, in fact, rate other DCS helicopters higher than it, but I think it's enjoyable. But it's up to you. If absolute flight model realism is very high on your list, which frankly usually tends to be so for me as well, but apparently not to full flight model Nazi level, because I do like Gazelle. But regardless, if it's primary consideration for you, let me just say you should research well before buying your modules, because some of the modules rate really high on realism without compromise front. Others feel a little iffier on that respect. So without naming names, I can just say you should do your due diligence if that's a consideration for you. But yeah, speaking of the helicopters, of course, that's a whole another level, because helicopters are very different to fly compared to fixed-wing aircraft, and even without combat, flying them around and learning to control them precisely can be a very fine challenge and a very fun thing to do on their own. And with some mission scripting, and missions are available readily scripted for you in the community, you can find them. There are some multiplayer servers supporting that as well. You can use them for cool fun things like evacuating shutdown pilots, or managing your systems just finally enough to be able to fly those helicopters at really really difficult conditions for helos, like higher levels of Mount Elbrus, highest point in Caucasus map, or the higher points in other maps. So yeah, helicopters are pretty cool as well. And when it comes to combat, Black Shark is a proper attack helicopter that can make a mess of a lot of things. But being a unique single-seat attack helicopter, it has lots of autopilot systems to take some of the burden away from the single pilot, so he can concentrate more on managing sensors and weapons and tactics. So it's sort of a unique helicopter. Then you have many versions of Gazelle, with M version having some relatively shortish range, but high hitting power, anti-tank capabilities, also night capable, unlike the KA-50. It's let's just say it's semi-night capable. And the Gazelle L version is actually a nice light scout helicopter with a 20mm cannon and some decent rockets, also quite fun. And Mistral version has air-to-air missiles, and finally you have a version with a minigun firing sideways from rear compartment door. And Huey is just iconic and amazing. It's pretty analog, nothing is helping you, but it's also relatively lightweight and powerful-ish, so it has nice agility, many old school but still capable weapon capabilities. And Mi-8 is a large, surprisingly fast and powerful helicopter that can also lug around a lot of weapons, but it's not as agile as most other helicopters in DCS. So yeah, you can't go wrong with helicopters in DCS, in my opinion, but they are very different from fixed-wing aircraft. Finally, you don't necessarily need to do just combat, because DCS has, at least right now, pretty much the best as far as flight modeling goes in the industry. Most pilots apparently agree that as well, actually. Actual pilots who are flying some of the types in real life, or similar types in a way. Just flying around those iconic aircraft, doing your personal air shows or shenanigans can be pretty fun, and there are a few aircraft pretty much specializing on that in DCS as well. We have Yak 52, which is an aerobatics and training aircraft, and used as a general aviation aircraft as well. It's pretty fun to fly, though it does have a few issues that are taking quite long to fix, apparently, but its flight model, its 3D modeling, its textures, they're all pretty nice. Then you have Cristen Eagle 2 by Leatherneck Simulations, which is quite similar to the famous Pitts S2 aerobatics aircraft, at least externally. And it can be very fun to fly and do aerobatics in as well. However, the crazy on the edge of the envelope flight modeling of these sort of aircraft seem to be a rather difficult thing to do, so they do feel iffy at some parts of their flight models, but they are still very fun, and it's as close as we can get to crazy aerobatics without becoming an aerobatics pilot ourselves. Finally, I already had a free aircraft options in DCS video from a few months ago. Since then, there has been a new one, a very, very nice one. It's Edge 540. It's geared more for air racing than aerobatics display right now. And there's a pretty active air racing community around it, and VARS, they're organizing air races in DCS with aircraft like L39, Cristen Eagle 2, Edge 540, the Mustang, and the Yak. So I would suggest including it in your DCS as well. It's free and it's pretty amazing actually. But yeah, it's already pretty long, more than 20 minutes long video at this point. So I think I will cut it out here. Yeah, we can say that there's a lot of different things you can choose from in DCS, but main considerations is: do you want air-to-air, do you want air-to-ground, and even between them, do you want up-close air-to-air, old-school air-to-air, or beyond visual range one, or do you want up-close ground attack, or planned more long-ranged air-to-ground? Do you want modern planes? Do you want more old school things? Do you want helicopters? Do you want planes? And are you particularly particular about the realism and bug freeness of your modules, or are you more lenient on that front? All of these are the considerations you should look through when deciding to buy your first module. I personally would add only one slight suggestion. For your first module, I think it's a better idea to choose one of the more complete and stable modules. Perhaps it might be a good idea to stay away from the very early access ones. Although, to be fair, at this point in DCS they are getting fewer in number. Right now even the latest released modules got some sort of love to bring them to a decent state, but time will pass and new modules will be introduced, and people watching this video in future might still want to take a look at what's available in an early access module and what's not before buying it as their first ever module. Yeah, so looks like this may indeed become a series, and I may look in those categories in more deeper detail in later videos. But yeah, for now, let's hope this will help you people enjoying DCS more, and see you all later.